Calificas para ser legal. ¿Quieres saber? Solo llama al abogado Andres Mejer.
Welcome back. Welcome to the new year. My name is Andres Mejer, and I am a speaker, published author, and immigration attorney. And in this version of our radio program, we just finished the Spanish-speaking segment that was live on Radio Cantico Nuevo. Now I'm talking to you, doing the same program in English for our English-speaking audience. So what are we talking about today? First part is devoted to breaking news. So here is how is the immigration being affected by the government shutdown. That's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about. Second, we're going to talk about is how to find somebody who's been detained by ICE and under what circumstances does ICE typically detain someone. The third section is a case study. We're going to talk about Mario and how a criminal charge affected his possibility to get immigration relief. So let's get started. Happy New Year to all. Shutdown, week 3. How does that affect us? Well, look, during December, not so much because, to be honest, there isn't a whole lot of cases. There isn't typically not a whole lot that happens in December. But we're not in December anymore. So now we got to figure out, well, if you want to file something, can you file something? If you're detained, what does that mean for your ability to get out? So immigration is many different agencies. It's not monolithic. It's not just one. USCIS, some are closed and some are not. Some are affected and some are not. Realistically, they're all affected on some level. So Department of Homeland Security is combined of a lot of smaller agencies. One of the bigger ones are USCIS, United States Citizen Immigration Services. That's the agency that deals with green card petitions, deals with citizenship petitions, whether it's from a family side or from an employment side. Most of your applications are reviewed and approved or denied by USCIS. Well, USCIS is a fee-funded agency. That means they don't get any government funding other than the fees you pay to become a U.S. citizen. That's $780 now. To become a green card holder, that's about $1,500. If you need a waiver for something, that's $985. All of those fees go directly to the agency, and the agency uses those to fund its activities. E-Verify, absolutely not working. It's closed down. Now that really deals with only larger employees, but that's a reality for many people. Customs Border Patrol, who are they? That's the agency that you meet when you enter and or leave the U.S. For example, if you go on a vacation or if you go on a trip to Canada or you go to Mexico, even driving, you're going to cross the border, you're going to come back, you're going to be interviewed by a Customs and Border Patrol agent. You're going to show your passport or you're going to show your American passport or other passport. Now, they are an essential agency. That means they don't close down. But I got news for you. If you're traveling, lines are going to be longer, guaranteed. But all airports and ports of entries are still working. Now, ICE. They still work. They're still picking up people. They're still deporting people. They're still detaining people. ICE doesn't stop. Now, government attorneys that work for ICE, well, they're only involved in detained cases. So that means if you are in immigration detention today, the courts are still working. You're still having court hearings. You're still trying to request a bond or to get out on bail. They call it an immigration bond. But if you're not detained, courts are closed. If you're not detained and you want to speak to the government's attorney to see if you can to work on some aspect of your case, or your attorney wants to do that, they're not going to answer. I mean, they hardly ever answer. But that's the reality. For those that are detained, government works normally. For those that are not detained, they're at a standstill. So what does that mean? If you have a court appearance today or tomorrow, you need to know, is the government closed or not? And you may not know until the morning. Now, if overnight the government opens and you have court tomorrow and you don't show up, chances are you're going to get an order of deportation. And then go try and explain why you didn't do what you needed to do, which was to show up. So easy way to do it, obviously call your attorney. He or she will be able to let you know. But if you don't have an attorney, call the 800 number. It's 1-800-898-7180. Again, that's 1-800-898-7180. It's an answering system. It's a recorded tree. When you call, first thing you do is press 1 for English or press 2 for Spanish. It's going to ask you for your alien identification number. It's not a social, but it's a number that tracks every type of immigration filing or case that you have from beginning to end. It is 9 numbers. It starts with an A, which is a letter. So you input that, then it's going to ask you, is this the correct spelling of your name? Or it's going to tell you you're not found in the system. If you're not found in the system and you know you have court, you made a mistake somewhere. If you are found, then listen to the prompts, and it'll tell you, when's your next court hearing? Now, what if a loved one was detained? How do you know where he or she is? Immigration is federal. They can place your loved one anywhere in the country. If you're detained in New Jersey, doesn't mean you will stay in New Jersey. They can move you however they see fit for reasons that they usually don't explain. Now, go into Google, type in ICE detainee locator. So that is a government website. It's updated every 1 to 3 days. I mean, it's supposed to be in real time, but really, the reality is it can take a couple of days before your loved one gets processed and their information will appear on that page. Google ICE, I-C-E, detainee, D-E-T-A-I-N-E-E, locator, L-O-C-A-T-O-R. You will need either his AIN number, which I explained before, and the exact spelling of his name. My full name is, my birth name is Andres Rosenfeld Mejer. If I'm detained and you put Andres Mejer on there, you may not find me if ICE has me as Andres Rosenfeld Mejer. So you gotta be precise. Now, you can also check with your embassy. You can call local immigration or ICE office. Obviously, if you're undocumented or illegal, depending on your terminology, I would not recommend that you call ICE. Checking the online system is the easiest way to do it. Checking with your consulate, it can work, but it is a slow process. If you have no other choice, call your consulate. Well, call the consulate of the immigrant who's detained. If you're American but your spouse is Mexican, call the Mexican consulate. If you're Mexican and your spouse is from El Salvador, call the El Salvadorian consulate. It's the consulate for the person who's detained. Now, what are the circumstances where an ICE could pick you up? Well, any filing with USCIS. That could be a citizenship petition, that could be a green card petition, could be an employment-based petition, no matter what. If they believe there's grounds to detain you, they will detain you. Today, if they deny your petition, you're going to be placed in removal proceedings. If you have an order of removal, well, you're going to get interviewed by ICE, and they're going to decide whether to put you in custody or not. Depends on your situation. Don't take any chances. Speak to counsel right away. If the police stops you, that could be, if you have an order of removal, they could discover it. If you leave the U.S., so you go on vacation, you're a green card holder, you've been a green card holder for 30 years, but 15 years ago, you pled guilty to possession of marijuana in Nebraska. You've left and come in no problems in the past, well, now this time you might have a problem. Not because it's new administration, just because now's when they caught it. Any immigration filing can result in detention. Now, if you are serving jail time, you were pled guilty or found guilty, you can be picked up by ICE. Or when you get released from your sentence, you can be picked up by ICE. They can pick you up at any point. It's quite common nowadays that while you're arrested and defending your case, immigration is going to detain you. So a criminal superior court judge may release you on bail, That doesn't mean an immigration judge will follow through and give you an immigration bond. The immigration judge could find that you're a threat to public safety, even though the criminal judge didn't. Way too common nowadays, and you find yourself having to defend both cases at the same time. That can get complicated and it can get expensive. So, last thing, I want to give a case study. I want to talk about Mario. Mario has been in the U.S. for over 15 years. In March of 2007, Mario was arrested for domestic violence. The allegation was that he was in a Walmart parking lot. He attacked his then girlfriend and her friend. He was in the possession of a BB gun. A BB gun is an unlawful weapon. He was charged with 3 different counts of possession of a weapon, which all was a BB gun, and 3 different counts of aggravated assault. So there were 3 different individuals. So what happened? A group, he attacked, quote unquote, a group, and he was charged with possession and use of that weapon and assault for each of those 3 individuals. 1 incident, but 6 charges. 2 charges against each victim. Now, he was in jail for about 6 weeks in 2007. He was released, and then he didn't appear. When he didn't appear to court, they gave him an order of arrest. 11 years later, he's driving. Actually, I don't even think he was driving. He was a passenger in a car. The driver was pulled over. The officer asked him for his identification, and once they found who he was, they found the order of arrest for failure to appear. They arrested him. Now, judge didn't give him a second time bail. Judge did not let him get out. He was detained, and ultimately immigration grabbed him. So that happened in August. In September, he pled guilty to 3rd-degree aggravated assault. Now, he had 3 second-degree charges for possession, and he had 3 aggravated assault charges, which each were in the 3rd degree. Point is, he was facing a lot of jail time. He pled guilty to 1 of those, 1 charge of aggravated assault in the 3rd degree, and all other charges got dismissed. He was sentenced to time served, which he had served about 6 weeks in 2007 and about 2 months in August. So in total, maybe I think it was just under 5 months jail time that he served. He got credit for all, and the court released him. The moment the court released him, ICE grabbed him. Now, Mario, but for this criminal charge, would have a fantastic case. Been in the U.S. a long time, has multiple kids. One of them has a severe medical condition. He could file for what's called cancellation of removal for those that don't have a green card. There are 4 requirements. Been here more than 10 years. Good moral person. Not convicted of a crime that disqualifies him. And 4th, he could show extreme and unusual hardship to a qualifying relative. So he can show all of those, but his criminal charge disqualifies him. Aggravated assault is a crime of moral turpitude. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Mario was charged and pled guilty to a state criminal offense in New Jersey. But now he's immigration, and he's detained by immigration, and he's now subject to federal law. So the federal government is going to look at the judgment of conviction, is going to look at the plea form that he signed, is going to look at the transcript of what he said in front of the judge, and is going to look at the statute that he pled guilty to, look at those elements, and compare it to federal crimes, and find, is it an aggravated felony? Is it a crime of moral turpitude? Is it something that disqualifies him from relief? So he hired us after he pled guilty to defend him in immigration. Now, when we looked at the facts, we had a problem. So we said, all right, let's order the transcript. Let's speak to his prior attorney. Let's get the plea form. What happened? Let's look at the discovery. So we're looking, 1, can we set aside the conviction? It's called post-conviction relief motion. Can we reopen it to try to get a different outcome? Very tough. Or can we appeal it? Because we were still within time to do that. Now, Here's where it gets interesting. Because for immigration, because an aggravated assault is immoral conduct, he's not eligible for a bond. So that means he's staying in jail throughout his proceedings until his trial, or unless ICE releases him based on some humanitarian basis, which, to be honest, that ain't happening. It didn't happen with Mario. It's happening with almost nobody, even before the government shutdown. Incredibly difficult to get ICE to exercise their discretion favorably for an immigrant in today's climate. That's just a simple reality. So we looked at the trend, and all right, so cancellation of removal. Not bond eligible because he pled guilty or was found guilty, and not eligible for cancellation of removal either. That's how serious this charge. He could have gotten his green card. Because he pled guilty or found guilty, he was disqualified. So he hired us to say, okay, help me with the immigration. One of the things helping with the immigration means I have to look at what happened and can I get a different outcome. So I pulled the plea form, and it said, and I'm going to read it from you. So it said he understood that so this is yes, no questions. He has to circle yes or no for each one. He has to sign, it's usually like a 4 or 5 page document. In this, it's either in English or Spanish. Here it was in Spanish. He needs to sign initial at the bottom of it that he understood, and he signs at the end. And he said, one of the questions was, did he understand that his guilty plea may result in his removal from the U.S.? Yes, he said. Did he understand that if he leaves, this may prevent a conviction may prevent his re-entering the U.S.? He said yes. He was asked, had he spoken to an immigration attorney about his immigration consequences? And he said yes. That's the plea form. Now, it's possible he didn't understand what he was signing. It was possible that it wasn't explained to him. It's possible that the judge didn't review it with him the way the judge is supposed to. So we pulled the transcript to see what was said when he showed up in court. Now, I'm going to read to you. I'm going to remove the names of the individuals, obviously. So this is now the judge speaking to his attorney. Mr. Attorney, do you agree that this would constitute an aggravated felony which would make deportation virtually certain? Meaning, do you agree that if he pleads guilty, he's going to get deported? Attorney, I would say so, Your Honor. My client does understand that given the current immigration law, that there's a very, very strong likelihood that he will eventually be deported. Now the judge, did you hear what the attorney just said, sir? So he's turning now to Mario. Yes. You understand that this would make it virtually certain that if you would be removed from the U.S., what we would call deportation. If I accept your plea at the end of this proceeding, you would not be able to come back to me and tell me you're changing your mind because of the immigration consequences. Do you still wish to plead guilty? Mario says yes. Attorney, Your Honor, I would like to note for the record that client has consulted with me on 2 occasions regarding the immigration consequences. My practice includes immigration case log, and I've indicated to him what I've just indicated on the record before Your Honor. Meaning I've told Mario, if he pleads guilty, he's getting deported. Court says, in addition, this is a couple pages later, the way that client was able to answer the interpreter and the way it was translated to me convinces me that he understood the nature of the proceedings and he understood the consequences of his plea, including immigration consequences. So this judge boxed him in very well. Mario could have said no at any one of those, could have said I need more time, I need to look at other options. Mario should not have accepted that plea agreement. He knew, the judge told him, and allegedly his attorney told him, and he signed a form that accepting that plea would get deportation. Going to another attorney, paying thousands of dollars to try to get a different outcome after you pled guilty is not the smartest choice. He should have fought it then and there. Now, the woman he was accused of being violent with, he's married to her. They're still together. It's 11 years later. There's been no outcome. She doesn't want to prosecute him. She doesn't want to hold him responsible. I don't know if it doesn't appear like those other two victims ever showed up to court, or they did in 2007, they didn't now. If he had gone to trial, all the state would have had is what the officer observed, and I don't know if the officer who wrote the report is still working. I don't know if he's still, he may have retired. You know, it was 11 years ago. If he's not in the picture, his report doesn't come into evidence. If his now wife says, I refuses to testify, what evidence would the state have that he committed the crime? Very little. He should have gone to trial. By doing that would have forced the state to reduce it to something else, or to say, you know what, I don't have, they take it to trial based on the officer's observations. Now, officer came to the scene after the fact. Mario was also charged with fleeing the scene. So it was discovered that he had the BB gun on him when he was arrested. It doesn't necessarily mean he had it the day in question at the parking lot. How do they prove it? If the witnesses don't testify and the officer wasn't there, how does the state prove that he used that weapon for an unlawful purpose? It's a problem. Trying to reopen it now, incredibly difficult. I can't do it because of immigration consequences. The judge cut him off at the knees, that's clear. So the only other option I have, and the judge, like he was very careful here, he was very careful in other aspects. He gave him the proper instructions. So the plea was knowing and voluntary. Okay, I don't have that outcome. So what do I look at? Well, did his attorney give him effective assistance? Was Mario deprived of his constitutional right to an attorney because his attorney was so bad? Understand what I'm saying? Was he deprived of his constitutional right because his attorney was subpar? The law entitles you to a right to counsel. It does not entitle you to the best attorney in the world. Only an average attorney. Now, if he was a U.S. citizen, if Mario was a U.S. citizen, he was charged with 6 crimes, 3 second-degree crimes and 3 third-degree crimes. And he dismissed 5 of them, pled guilty to 1 with time served, no additional jail time. I can't say that is categorically a bad outcome. For many people, that's a great outcome. If you're an immigrant, it's a death sentence, because the immigration consequences are so much worse than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or even a year in jail. When you're told you can't see your wife again, when you're told you're not going to see your kids again, assuming they stay in the U.S., or they're going to have to give up the life that they have here and go with you. Now, what happens if your wife is from one country and you're from another? That's a problem. Now, your kids are born in the United States. They maybe have never been to either country. In some circumstances, maybe they don't speak that language well. Well, if they're young, they can adapt. But the opportunities they have here, they're certainly not going to have in your country. Your life fundamentally has changed, and so has those kids. Now, he should have thought about that before he pled guilty. When I look at the plea, when I look at the discovery, I say I can't understand why the attorney would have advised him to plead guilty. Attorney said he was an immigration attorney. Attorney said, well, actually, he says that he advised him of his immigration consequences, so maybe he didn't advise him to plead guilty. Maybe that's just what Mario chose. He tells me something different, but at the end of the day, I have no way to know. The point is, the time to fight is when you're defending those charges, not with immigration after the fact. Certainly not after you've been told you're going to get deported. He spent thousands of dollars that he knew wouldn't help. His attorney told him, the judge told him. He hired me. I didn't know that. I wasn't there. I had to pull the information. I had to spend hours reviewing it to find that out. In today's world, You can't take any chances. If you're a green card holder and you were convicted of a crime years ago, that can affect you. If tomorrow you leave the country, try to come back in, they can detain you. I've had clients that ICE comes to pick them up 15 years later based on a civil marijuana possession. Or let's say you pled guilty to possession with intent to distribute. Now you got a real problem, because that prevents you from becoming a U.S. citizen, and it could prevent you from staying in the United States, depending on the circumstances. Don't take any chances. If you're charged with a crime, find capable counsel and make sure, ideally, it's somebody that can help you with the criminal and the immigration. Or find an immigration attorney that can help you find a safe harbor. If you're filing for some relief, make sure you speak to an immigration attorney first. Don't think just because you've been here 15, 20 years, nothing bad will happen. It doesn't work that way in our current climate. Now, that concludes our program this week. My name is Andres Mejer. I'm a speaker, published author, and immigration attorney. Thank you for joining us on this weekly show. Here in 2019, we are now going to be doing this in Spanish and in English. That's our commitment to you guys. If you want a copy of our book, Para Ser Legal, Qualify for Immigration Status, either call us at 888-888-0307. That's 888-888-0307. You can contact us on Facebook or on our website, Andres Mejer Law. We appreciate your questions. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about for next week, let us know. Until next time.
Calificas para ser legal, ¿quieres saber? Solo llama al abogado Andres Mejer.